Hi friends!
Hi everyone, it's Jung here, and today I'm sharing a process video using the new Spellbinders So Many Sentiments die set. They coordinate with the Truckin Through the Seasons Large Die of the Month, which came out in October 2018. Those are the cards that I made back in October, and these are all the dies that you get with that set. It was really popular, so they restocked it and they added these new sentiments as well. There are 14 new sentiments, and you can cut them with the straight edge or the fancy scalloped edge. There's some great everyday sentiments. There's one for wedding, the Mr. and Mrs. These would go great for Valentine's Day cards, although the smile and I love you would be great for every day as well. You can see the straight and the scalloped edges. And there are 4 new holiday sentiments also. I made 2 new cards this time around with a more spring-summer theme. Last time I used the pumpkins and the presents, so this time I'm going to be using the florals. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting the truck from green cardstock, the tires from black cardstock, some of the brake lights from foiled red cardstock, and the bumper and the rear view mirrors from foiled silver cardstock. Here I'm using the new sentiment Congrats and the straight edge, and I'm cutting it out of gold glitter cardstock, but I changed my mind later. I like to use my Spellbinders tool-in-one tool to poke out all the negative pieces, and then I take the brush end and just kind of rub it over the die cut just to get rid of some of the little extra pieces of paper that's left behind. I am using the brake light die one more time, and I'm going to use it with the silver foiled cardstock. And the 2 smaller circles will end up being the taillights. I'm going to cut the greenery from 2 different shades of green cardstock. And then I'm going to cut out some of the flower pieces from various shades of pink and coral and yellow. To give my truck a little bit of more interest and dimension, I'm just going to use some distress ink. I believe this color is Evergreen Bow. And I'm just going to use a sponge dauber and slightly add some color to the edges of the truck. I will say that once the ink dry, the look is very subtle. I could have used a brown or a darker color, but I just wanted a little bit of color. Okay, now I'm going to start assembling my truck. I like to assemble my truck all the way before I put it on the card because I like to use foam tape to pop it up off the card base. First, I attach the bumper, and then here is where I'm kind of rethinking the idea of the gold glitter Congrats. I didn't think it read very easily, and so I think I will cut it out of green cardstock instead. It's the same shade of green that I used for the truck body, and I'm also going to use the fancy scalloped edge for this one as well. Again, I will use my Spellbinders tool-in-one tool, and that little box is just a piece of old packaging that I'm recycling as a trash can. I'm still kind of thinking I want to use the gold somewhere, so I decided to try the gold behind the green Congrats. And I like the way that looks, so I just used the scrap piece that I had left, and I'm going to glue it to the back of the Congrats. When I was making this card, I had my niece in mind. She's graduating from high school, and their school colors are green and white, but there's always a little bit of gold thrown in, and so that's why I chose the colors for the truck. And so next I'm going to glue on the tires. And I'm going to use the back of the truck to kind of help line it up. I will line up the top of the tires with the top of the portion where the bumper goes. And that will help ensure that the tires are even. Next, I'm going to glue on the rear view mirrors, or the side mirrors, I'm sorry. And these can be a little tricky because they're so tiny, and the spot that you attach them to the truck is even tinier, so it takes me a little bit of wrangling, but I get them down and I just try and make them look as even as possible. Next, I'm going to add that Congrats to the back of the truck. I really like the way this looks much better. I think it's easier to read than had I used the gold glitter Congrats. And while that's drying, I'm going to dig out the taillights and the brake lights. I'm going to use my crystal katana to try and help me line these tiny pieces up. I really love all the details that were put into these die kits. There's so many little pieces that help to make the truck look more realistic, and they make your cards look that much better. There's also some embossing lines on some of the dies, like the brake lights have embossing lines, and the bumper you can see kind of has an embossed line as well. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the greenery and the flowers. This is my first time working with the leaves and the flowers. So I'm just kind of playing around to see what looks good. I'll just fuss with the greenery for a bit. And I noticed that I like to put my extra embellishments on the right side of the truck. I don't know why that is, but when I look back at the other cards too, I put like the pumpkins and the presents in on the right side of the truck. Okay, so I managed to get all 5 pieces of the greenery that I die cut into the truck. I did trim one of them down, but they're all in there. And now I'm going to work on some of the flowers, and I definitely didn't use all the floral pieces that I die cut. I thought I was going to make a lot more flowers, but in the end I didn't want the truck to look too cluttered. So I showed this in my last video. I don't have the little tool that shapes the flowers. So I am just making do with what I have, and I'm using the little needle tip from my fine liner bottle. And it works for me just fine, and that little piece on the bottom is just a piece of fun foam, and it works, so I'm just going to roll with it. I'm going to play around with the flowers until I like how it looks. I don't want the flowers to overpower the truck, so I end up only using 3 of the bigger floral pieces, and then I sprinkle a couple of tiny pieces here and there, and you can see what I came up with. For my background, I decided to do some ink blending with Distress inks, which are my favorites for backgrounds, and I'm going to use a cloud stencil to create a sky. I kind of had a sentiment in mind, congrats, sky's the limit, and I'll probably just handwrite sky's the limit on the inside of the card, which I think is very fitting for a graduation. The Distress ink colors that I'm using are Spun Sugar, Tumbled Glass, and Salty Ocean. And after I lay the initial color of Spun Sugar down, I'm going to bring in the stencil. I'll do 2 layers of the Tumbled Glass, and then I believe a layer or 2 of the Salty Ocean. I am just using my ink blending tool, and I am using the slightest pressure to softly add just a little bit of color. As soon as I finish inking up my sky panel, my camera dies, so I'm just going to tell you how I finished the card. I'll go ahead and trim down the panel to slightly less than A2 sized, and I'm going to use fun foam and attach it to a white card base. Then I will take the whole truck with the flowers and everything on it, add some foam tape to the back, and then add it straight to my sky panel. Then I will add in some extra flowers that I put together. I add some gold glitter stars that I had die cut earlier as well. And then I will take my liquid pearls, and the color I'm using is opal, to add centers to the flowers. And then I just put some randomly on the sky background as well. And that is how I finished the card. I also made another card, and I thought it would be great for a teacher gift, and the sentiment I used is "You are great." And I made a red truck, and the background is a piece of patterned paper. And I wanted the background to look a little bit distressed, so one edge is torn. And then the top left corner, I folded the corner of the patterned paper down and adhered it with tiny staples. I added the Thanks a Bunch sentiment, which is a glimmer foil plate from the Everyday Sentiments 2. And that's it. I hope you've enjoyed my process video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And my blog posts with the links will be in the info bar below. Have a wonderful day. Bye.